Welcome and thank you for joining us on today's webinar. Everybody's going to be placed in a listen-only mode, but we'd love it if you sent us questions. Simply type them into the Q&A dialog box and we'll answer as many of the questions as we can at the end. We're going to dive into today's topic and share how you can automate and integrate a TMS to bring more value to your business while also simplifying the complexity of your transportation network. I'm your host, Shannon Corrigan. I'm the Director of Marketing at RateLinx, and it's a pleasure to introduce Evan Miller and Scott Adams from Sikich, along with our industry veteran, Shannon Vaillancourt, CEO of RateLinx. Together, the three of them bring over 30 years of experience in the logistics and tech industries. Let's start with a quick round of introductions, starting with you, Evan.
Thanks, Shannon. My name's Evan Miller. I've been with Sikich about 6-7 years now, working in various industries, manufacturing, shipping, transportation, done everything from the functional side to the technical side, and I've ended up on the technical side. So with that, I'll pass it over to Scott.
Hey, good morning. My name is Scott Adams. I work with Sikich. I've been here 6.5 years now. I've been in ERP consulting and warehousing and transportation for 13 years. So happy to be here. Happy to share some thoughts and feedback and get this thing started.
And then I'm Shannon Vaillancourt. Yeah, I'm Shannon Vaillancourt, president here and founder at RateLinx. Been in the I'd say transportation industry since the early 90s, so a little over 30 years. I've been implementing TMS shipping systems of all kinds for all sorts of customers. So happy to be here with Scott and Evan to talk through how we work together and how we help a lot of customers together.
Okay, thanks everyone. Today, wanted to thank the audience and also our presenters for carving out time. We know we're all busy, so appreciate you being on the call today. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is really managing parcel and LTL and the complexity and how it can be very manual. Evan, can you talk through some of the things you've heard from your Microsoft Dynamics 365 customers about the advice they're asking for to optimize even more of their supply chain, but more specifically, optimizing their shipping processes?
Absolutely. Speaking from a technical perspective, one of the most basic asks that we see is simplicity. Making sure that our customers have something simple for their warehouse, for their sales, for everyone to use, so that way nothing complicates the entire process. This could be as simple as the user interface, the functions of the shipping software itself. Does it integrate with other systems? Can it automate things? These are things customers are actively asking about when they want to optimize, because they need to have it, efficiently up and running at all times. It needs to be a quick turnaround if we're changing systems, things like that. One of the things that I kind of just mentioned right there at the end is automation. Customers really want the ability to have their shippers be able to process in one system and have that information pushed out to their other systems, or even have information pushed into that system. Reading weights from packages and being able to push that to then the ERP is something critical that a lot of our customers ultimately ask throughout the course of an implementation, especially when it comes to shipping. Both of those are kind of some of the main asks that I see when we get to the discussion of shipping at the time. Those are kind of the main ones that I see, I should say.
Okay, thanks. Scott, have you heard anything different from the Dynamics 365 clients about automation and getting rid of manual shipping processes?
Yeah, so I'm a senior solutions architect at Sikich, and so I'm typically tasked with helping build integrations between what's normally happening on an ERP project and to a shipping integration with RateLinx, and helping customers with their transportation needs and desires. So a lot of times, some of the things that I typically see that customers would want in automation wise is when they get to the shipping department or they get to the shipping station, they want the ability to scan shipment numbers. They want to be able to the ability to have those labels printed pretty seamlessly from within their TMS. They want that information to be recorded and written back to their ERP system a lot. Sometimes they have various reporting needs that would come out of their TMS, and they would need information to come, from an integration standpoint from their transportation system back into their ERP. They also we've seen some scenarios where sometimes customers need to have the ability to pick products on the floor, have an automated way for shipping labels to be printed maybe from while they're picking products, like from a hand truck or a forklift, maybe even a drive around cart kind of picking operation. And so being able to have the ability to ship packages from different areas other than just shipping and packing stations, having that information flow, automated back into their ERP, or have automated emails flow out to their customers, have those automated responses and those triggers built in with their ERP and shipping integration is a pretty common request. Something else that I see a lot is what you'll see is when customers get to the picking and packing and shipping part of their warehouse operations. So they'll go out and they pick the products, using a forklift or whatever, and then they drop those goods off at the packing station. Well, a lot of times the order will be marked with like a common carrier, like a FedEx or UPS, and the order was put into the system, with that parcel carrier marked, right? And then after the product was picked and placed in the shipping department, well, for whatever reason, maybe it weighs too much, maybe the size is a little weird or wonky, it needs to go LTO. And so a common request that we'll see is, being able to flip that carrier or that mode, from FedEx or UPS type of method over to like an LTL or even an FTL approach. So just being able to automate those types of things, being able to provide flexibility to our customers, are a lot of things that I see on product. Shannon.
Okay, thanks, Shannon Vaillancourt. Do you have anything else that you've heard from the market when you're at trade shows, user conferences, when you're talking with prospects or clients regarding the automation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's everything that Evan and Scott have been saying. It really is about simplicity. They want the users to be able to perform the shipping task as easily as possible, as quickly as possible, with little to no interaction with the system. That way it's going to not only streamline the whole shipping process, but it's going to eliminate any errors that could occur. Because, every time there's a manual input into the system, there's a great opportunity for something to be done wrong. And not only that, but then it's just going to slow them down. So if they do have any peak seasons or anything like that, if you have a slow process, all of a sudden now you've got headcount, and then you're going to be probably bringing in people that have to be trained up. So again, the likelihood of errors are going to increase. And for companies that really depend on getting their products out the door to their customers on time, the right way, they can't afford to have any errors because it's going to cost them money. And that's what we're always working on with any type of install we do, is trying to automate as much as possible and trying to allow the shippers to be able to get their labels, create their shipments inside of the processes that have been built within that warehouse. So that's where you've got your traditional shipping station just outside the dock door. You've got your packing stations where they're packing things into boxes, getting their labels at that point to put on the box, or they're doing it as part of a wave planning process, so they have it as they're picking the product. Or, we've done this with a couple of customers with Scott and Evan, where the customer's picking the product, and as they scan it, it prints out a label on a printer that's attached to their belt or on their workstation. So I mean, there's really no no real limitation to how people want to get the shipping process, completed. And at the end of the day, it just comes down to, integrating it and automating it so that it's as simple and easy as possible for all the different, processes that they're going to have within that warehouse. And that's where, some of these companies have multiple processes depending on the products that they're shipping. So the system has to be very flexible and be able to be adapted so that way it can work within the processes. So, that's really what I've seen over the last few years. It's really about just, there is no real limit to what people ask for, and we have to be very flexible with that. And it just comes down to the integration that we're doing.
That's great. Now that, basically one of the things that's a definite benefit for the ShipLinx TMS is having, parcel, LTL, and even truckload rates, ocean, and more in a centralized repository. Can you talk about, how that helps with carrier selection and also rate shopping, and talk about some of the challenges that you've seen with just the carrier selection process of the transportation life cycle?
But it's all about the having every carrier in one system. That way, as they're performing these shipping operations within their process, they can see all the rates at one time. We run into a lot of customers where maybe they have a system that's built more for parcel, so they'll have their LTL carriers in there that are not rated. So the user has to go outside the system to go to carrier websites or go to a different system to do rate shopping in order to figure out should it go LTL or parcel. And that's where having all that in one place not only streamlines it, but it also allows the user and the company really to put rules in place so that way there's no real decision making happening on the line. Because, again, every time you're going to do that, there's an opportunity for somebody to make a wrong decision, or it just slows them down at the worst case scenario. So having all that in one spot and a system that understands all the different modes is also very important. And I think that's what we've really hit upon here with a lot of our customers. And again, through the integration, knowing that you could ship this particular product LTL or parcel, and making that decision based on how the company has decided how they want to move freight. I mean, that's what is going to make this thing very automated. And again, it just removes all that subjectivity. That way, companies can really optimize their freight spend and save money. And if they're marking up freight and charging their customers, doing a prepay and add, then they're also able to actually make freight a little bit more of a profit center and rely on that profit center margin that maybe that they've budgeted, for the year. So I think that's the challenge, and I think that's where having a system like ours has allowed a lot of companies to not only streamline what they're trying to do, but also come up with new ways, because there's no real limit on how you can do this stuff. And you need a powerful system like ours that you can dynamically create rules in to run your business. And that's what we're focused on.
Okay, thanks, Shannon. Sounds like there's a lot beyond just the automation saving time. It also has opportunities to also, reduce freight spend and optimize, the entire process across, the warehouse. Scott, what do you hear from your clients about the automation and the controls that they need?
So a lot of our customers, they're keenly aware of their freight spend, right? And so, sometimes their freight spend budgets are, several $1,000,000, if not more. And so, of course, the financial department is very aware of that. The warehouse and logistics department is very aware of that, that large amount of capital that's being spent on transportation, right? So naturally, they're looking ways to reduce that. They are, sometimes, besides labor, transportation could be the second or third largest expense for a company. So being able to minimize that, being able to control that, regulate that, having a lot of effective controls in place to help them minimize that freight spend, is really important. Typically on projects, I'll see, hey Scott, how can we consolidate shipments? What's the best way we can expedite this process? Can we shop for the least expensive carrier? Can you provide me with a carrier that is that's actually going to deliver the products and get them there on time when they say a trusted carrier, right? So a lot of our customers have, they have 3PL warehousing, they do drop shipments, they have multiple third-party carriers involved. Sometimes they have their own fleets. So, being able to have control, being able to have a voice, being able to put a system in place that helps them to manage that is key. Being able to shop, those logistics providers. So it's typically transportation directors, freight spend, being able to shop for the best rates. That's two of the things you hear very common that I hear a lot on our software projects. Being able to leverage flexible solutions that that we can build with RateLinx is important because that's not really a one size fits all. A lot of customers have varying requests, they have varying needs. Their shipments may be small, their shipments may be very large. And so there's you really have to be able to have an adaptive and a flexible approach to be able to build these solutions. And so we feel that RateLinx and then what my team and others are able to do, we're able to give our customers what they seek in that.
Okay, thanks. Evan, what have you heard about the controls or, the governance at the corporate level and gets pushed down throughout the organization? Is that something they need? And how does that relate to some of the automations that you've been able to help clients with RateLinx?
Yeah, as Scott mentioned, we have a slew of variations in our customer base. Making sure that data is written back accordingly to the system is key for our customers, whether that be charges, box information, tracking information, what have you. Shippers ultimately ship products, salespeople ultimately sell it. Sales doesn't go into shipping, try and do all the rates and charges and all that information and vice versa. So, we ultimately need, a one, not a one size fit all, but a one button for all information, right? When a shipment ships, that information needs to go back for the sales team, and make sure that everyone has the information that they need accordingly. The sales team has a duty to the customers themselves as well as the shipment team, but they got to make sure that those packages get there and they're charged accordingly, whether it be our customers taking on that cost or it's ultimately charged to their customers. We have to be accurate with that information and being able to provide that shipping information at the sales level as well. So being able to split that up between sales and shipping and being able to have all that information available to our customers has been pretty key in that automation step.
Oh, thanks, Evan. That does really make sense, and everything seems, we're hearing a lot of the same things from the folks Shannon's talking to and your Microsoft Dynamics 365 clients. We started talking about the rates in the centralized repository, rate shopping, and, automatically picking whether it's parcel, LTL, truckload, ocean, and more. and we found the right carrier. Now, how do we make sure the shipments get out the door in the most efficient way? And how does the TMS enhance the shipper's customer experience while making things more efficient across their entire shipping process? Shannon?
Again, it just comes down to being able to put the system into the process that the customer has. So rather than adapting the process to fit the system, we adapt the system to fit their process. So if they've got a bunch of items that are handled in a separate way where they have a process for singles, maybe they call it that, it's a same item going to multiple different destinations. I mean, we run into that a lot with customers. It's like, how do you make that as efficient and as accurate as possible? Well, that could be, in one system, we've got that workstation that's built for the single. Then maybe you've got another part of the warehouse where they're doing more of your traditional order, multiple items going into a box. So set the system up for that workstation so that way that it manages that process the right way and fits into their process. Then they could have maybe a part of the warehouse where it's more automated, more of a black box scenario. So, let's leverage our black box capabilities to fit into that process. So that's where we have had customers where in one system we have 3 or 4 completely different processes running, and that's where we're able to fit into that process with our system, not make them have to adapt their process, because again, most of their processes are built around the physical layout of the warehouse, and that's where the software has to fit into that, so that way it drives their efficiency. And that's where we're able to do that through our extensibility. So we can deliver what looks like a very custom solution without it being custom. It's extensible. So we can extend the capabilities of our current solution and give that customer a custom looking rule, custom feel to the process, and that way they can really maximize the value of the rest of their processes that they've put in place in this whole warehouse. And they don't have now this, square peg in a round hole situation with the shipping system. So I think that's one of the things that we run into all the time. And that's where we try to find out at the beginning, what's your process like? How do you guys do this? What does it look like? Explain to me the physical side of things. That way we can make sure that we're delivering a solution that fits into it and they don't have to fight it anymore. And that's usually what we find is there was something in their previous solution that just couldn't quite be done that they then had to do a manual workaround with. And that's where we're able to finally streamline all that. So I always used to talk about this years ago. It's like a hot fudge sundae, except everyone's got the ice cream, everyone's got the hot fudge, but then with us, some people like sprinkles. Like, that's fine. You can put sprinkles on top. Some people won't like the nuts on top. Some people like, something else on top. And it's like, that's what we're able to do. And I think that's what makes everyone, really get the efficiency out of our system is it's built exactly for them. And then because we're extensible, not customized, you can take a version upgrade, because that's the challenge with our software is we're not in control of the rules of the software in a way. We have to adapt to the carrier's updates. And, UPS changes, FedEx changes every year. 3 sure things in life: death, taxes, and a rate change. So we have to be able to do that update. And, that was something that, in the 90s, I remember it was mind-boggling. We had to go touch every system. And back then, the rates changed in February. So I remember driving around, February doing the version upgrades. And it was, you had your fingers crossed. You're like, oh, please work. And then, it would work. And you're like, phew, go on to the next one. So nowadays it's so much more automated. And, I think that's where we figured that out, and it was from a lot of experience in the industry, and that's why we auto update everything. And, because we're hosted in Azure, scalability is not a problem. So for those customers at peak seasons, the system just auto expands for them. So that way they have plenty of throughput when they need it, and then it will shrink back down for the times when they don't need it. So, again, the technology's really made this a much easier thing to do than it used to be. But I think really for us, it's the extensibility is the real thing that we've kind of figured out and allowed us to really make the system fit every single customer like a glove, but yet still take a version upgrade. That way everybody's on the latest version and they never get left behind, because unfortunately UPS and FedEx and every other carrier is going to make an annual rate change. And hopefully it's only once. It's happened twice, I think twice in my career that they've done it in 1 year, but that's where you got to be adaptable and nimble to make those changes.
Okay. And you were mentioning that ShipLinx TMS works with, any of the carrier updates. Can you talk about how the integration with Dynamics 365 could be affected by like those somewhat customizable extensibility features?
I mean, that's everything we do is built around being able to allow everything around us to update. And again, that's where the extensibility comes into play. Because if anything changes on D365 side with, I don't know, some technology change, some, now it would probably be some security change in terms of, OAuth and how that works, we can adapt to it quickly and then auto deploy it out there to the customer. So again, that's just how our system's architected. It's architected for change. And there are parts of our system that we know have to change and be ready for change, and that's how we built this thing. So that way it's really not a problem for us. And it's hard to understand unless I pull out the architecture diagrams and kind of show the magic that we figured out a long time ago. You have to experience it with us, and that's where we've got a lot of customers that will say, yeah, we've had this system for a long time, and it takes an upgrade every time. Not an issue ever. Customers don't even know anymore that it happens. That's where the technology is so nice with how it's deployed today.
Yeah, that has to make a big difference. Just keep working in the background so they can get their product out the door. Now that we've kind of talked about some of the extensibility and just some of the efficiency gains, now we're talking about how do we get the transportation group involved in your consultations when you guys are, looking at ERP processes and anything across the supply chain. Scott and Evan, do your clients typically include your transportation group, or what's some of the resistance to incorporating this automation and optimization in your engagements?
Yeah, a lot of times on our projects, during our consultations, we're constantly evaluating, processes. We're evaluating, how the system can impact those processes, improve those processes, streamline those. It's typically the main driving force behind a lot of the projects that we're working on is how can we improve this? We're making this capital investment into this, into this software system, then let's get the most benefit out of it, right? So I would say, it was just a good rule of thumb or a good practice to follow is try to bring the transportation group into the overall plan and into the overall project sooner rather than later. My experience in the past working with numerous customers on these very large scale projects, sometimes the transportation group kind of just gets pushed to the side for a while. They're very focused on finance. They're very focused on the sales orders. sales process. They're focused on the customer creation process. They're focused on the order, being able to order from their vendors, EDI, being able to, all of those are very important parts of a project. And I'm not saying that. But transportation, again, going back to what I said earlier, if that's a second or third largest expense for your company, that should be a really big part of your project that you're currently working on and you're upgrading, right? So I wouldn't wait to bring that discussion around a transportation software or a transportation system into the project. I would bring them in sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Also,
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Sometimes I even see that, sometimes the transportation the department in itself and just the corporate structure and way that it's organized is just kind of disjointed from the whole business entirely. And so, being able to make improvements within that structure and being able to bring that transportation process and system into the overall IT plan is I would say is a very key strategic initiative that people should consider. And bring me into the process. Let me get introduced to the transportation department, so that I can build that. As an architect, I want to be able to build that encompassing solution for everything involved. So bring myself in, bring RateLinx in. Let us have a conversation about your transportation needs earlier than later on the project. Thanks, Shannon.
Okay. Evan, what has your experience been with the involvement of the transportation group?
Yeah, and I think Scott kind of hit on it right there at the end of, the transportation group being a bit disjointed. I feel like a lot of our implementations, we see that the transportation group gets lumped in with the warehousing. And ultimately, warehousing takes a larger role because customers want to focus on inventory, making sure that their products are getting built and all these other things. And then, ultimately shipping just kind of falls to the wayside when everything has gotten to the end of the process, right? Shipping's at the end of sales order to manufacturing to, maybe there's purchase orders now involved. As Scott was saying, we ultimately end with shipping it out the door, and just with that, it makes it tough to bring it in early for our customers because they don't think about it until the very end. I've seen both ends where someone's brought in, some of these requirements early and it's been great, and some where we've left it to the last minute and it's been rough getting in some of those requirements right at the very end. So getting them, in as soon as possible is crucial to the implementation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We've all heard if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Would you agree, Evan? Is that the case with logistics?
I think everyone's a bit afraid of doing anything to their whole shipping process, supply chain. Any change is scary. It's the fear of the unknown, right? Any downtime can be detrimental, whether it be small or large. So even just that fear of the system going down just to replace the system is terrifying. Missing a day of shipping can cause that much turmoil for their customers, for our customers as well. Our goal at Sikich is to exceed our clients' expectations and to continually add value to their business, I should say. And we want to make sure our customers are able to do that for their customers as well. We can't slow down their shipping. So we have to make sure we've got a short implementation timeline so that our customers can make sure that shipping and D365 work seamlessly together.
Okay, that definitely makes sense. Scott, can you expand on a little bit more about what Evan said and touch on the importance of working seamlessly with D365 and some of the challenges your customers encounter, and also how has your experience been, working with us at RateLinx throughout the implementation process of ShipLinx TMS?
Yeah, Shannon. I would say one of the first things I run into is just a customer's overall approach just to change management, as Evan mentioned. Um, having that desire and the willingness and ability to effectively approach change management and integrate it into a project is very crucial for our customers. I would say that Dynamics 365, F&O that I implement and work on exclusively most of the time, and RateLinx, it's the methodology is pretty simple. I mean, they're using OData exchanges. It's pretty flexible, so this you have this depth of technology, right? And it's very wide in its scope and the spectrum across your enterprise. Um, being able to technically handle a problem or a solution that's can be solved with this level of technology that's available to us, but it's still difficult to as Shannon said, mold the software into the process. I believe is what he said, so that you're changing the process rather than changing. I'm sorry, you're changing the software rather than changing the process. So I think that's key. Identify inefficient processes, identify inefficiencies in your system, and bring those to the forefront when you're doing these projects. I spent a lot of time in warehouses across my career. Um, Shannon has probably double amount of time in warehousing process transportation as I do in my career. So just having that that combined industry knowledge is helpful to our customers when we're doing these implementation projects. Now another thing that I would like to mention is going back to freight spend. A lot of transportation managers they know that freight spend is expensive for their organization. It's kind of on the forefront of their overall capital budget for the year. So just being able to find ways to improve that, relying on folks like Shannon and myself and Evan and other advisors on these projects to help them make functional improvements, help them make process improvements, help help our customers build sound solutions that are going to work for them for now and as it moves forward. So overall, working with RateLinx has really been great for us. I can't really recommend them anymore. Just the flexible approach and the ability to help our customers adapt to quickly changing environments, quickly changing needs and expectations on a project. I've been very pleased. Thanks, Shannon.
Okay. Um, Shannon, is there anything else you'd like to add about what sets apart our implementation process and your involvement in helping our customers get implemented?
Well, I mean, this is this is the part of my job that I mean, that's what I've always done my whole career here. And at RateLinx, the implementation team reports directly to me, so that way, I can help where needed. Provide my experience because I've been in a lot of warehouses. I've also worked on the WMS side, so I understand that piece and how that has to integrate to the shipping side and the whole flow of a warehouse, which I think is important to understand. And it's just like what Evan and Scott were saying. It's a lot of change management you have to go through, and it really is the devil is what we find, where we run into customers that will complain about their current solution, and then when we start talking about making a change, they're like, "Whoa, I don't know though, because I think we maybe finally have it right, and I don't want to disrupt it again. I don't want to change it." And it's usually something very simple is what we find. And that's where, the implementation process we follow is to avoid those types of situations. It's a simple but thorough process that's been built by experience. When I had successful projects, what did they look like? Well, this is what they look like, and this is how we ran them. And this is what I was taught, a long time ago. And it works still to this day. That's why we stick to it. It's something as simple as a little functional spec to walk through. Here's the process. And as we're putting that together, we ask the customer about their process. How do you do it? Well, why do you do it that way? Is there anything you want to improve in the process? Is there anything you don't like in the process? And we do try to avoid as many manual touches as possible. And that's where we find out when we're talking with the customer, it's like, well, why do you do it that way? And they're like, well, because our current system, I have to do this or I have to do that. And it's like, well, what if we just did this automatically for you? And they're like, oh my God, you can do that? And it's like, yeah, we can do that. So that's the process that we go through. And when we have a great partner like we do with Sikich, it makes the process even better because now we've also got, Scott and Evan on the Sikich side that are architecting pieces of D365 that we're unaware of. And they're bringing that expertise to the integration of the shipping system. So, something as simple as a freight charge and how it's going back to D365 and the rules, they understand the whole business case behind it. So then we're able to get in front of some of these things and really make sure that what we're setting up for the customer has longevity. Not that we're setting up just a single use case that they thought of today, but it's a case that they can actually grow with and adapt into. And it might have more flexibility than they need right out of the gate, but then 6 months, a year, 3 years down the road, they can grow into it. And I think that's really the nice thing about how we implement with a partner like Sikich. It's not only just how the RateLinx implementation process works, but it's also how it works with a really good partner like we have in Sikich. And I think that's important to understand because we've implemented a lot of projects in 22 years, over the 22 years we've been around. And we did it without having partners like Sikich. So when we do have those types of partners, it does allow us to really do a lot more for the customer, and I think get a much better solution in there. And I think that's often overlooked from a lot of these customers, and that's why I think, like Scott said, get somebody like him involved. I mean, he's going to architect that solution. He's going to work with our team on that side as well. I mean, with the installs that we've done, there's a lot of back and forth that I don't think the customer is aware of that happens between Scott and me or Scott and another part of the team, just to make sure that what he's promising will actually work in the shipping system. And then when we come around to integrate our shipping system, we almost look like we're clairvoyant. And it's like, no, it's because we've been given the tip by Scott and Evan and that team over there. So I think that's what allows us to go quickly, because just like Evan said, you do have to go quick. Customers don't want a lot of disruption. And it's, the nature of the beast. As you're replacing software, you got to make sure that when they flip the switch, that they can ship everything out the door. And that's what we take a lot of pride in, is making sure that, no matter what happens, man, everything gets out the door that day. It has to happen. And again, we're architected that way, and that's just how we work. We're, when you're on an implementation, man, you better be ready. You're going to do a little bit of work, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, it's very gratifying when you see a great solution go out there.
Okay, thanks, Shannon. Well, now is time that we're going to open it up for Q&A. We've got some questions that have come in, but please don't hesitate to go ahead and type your question in. I think this is probably to the whole group. We have a question. It says, can you speak to some of the gotchas that clients can avoid when planning to change their TMS or change any of their business processes?
I mean, the
Uh,
biggest gotcha is they don't tell us everything, right, Scott?
well, I was going to say, kind of mentioned it earlier on on the webinar that uh, not bringing me into the process early enough, um, so that I have a clear view of what the expectation is, what the need is, and how it's going to fit into the solution. That's one of the big gotchas, exactly. So if we're not aware, or the transportation team is not brought into the process with the overall solution soon enough, that's that's the ultimate gotcha.
And
Okay.
I think the one that I run into a lot is I like to know what problem are we trying to solve. I think the biggest gotcha that I run into with the customer is sometimes they come to us with solution and we don't understand the context. It's like, what problem are you hoping to solve? Help me understand that first, and then from there, we can decide on what's the right solution. And that's where, the way we used to approach it is we would call it the 3D approach: diagnose, develop, deploy. Diagnose the real problem. What's the problem? Let's diagnose it correctly so we can develop the right solution that, when deployed, will actually work. And I think that's the biggest gotcha is just telling the customer, hey, just tell us the problem. And I think that's where we've all been conditioned wrong, because you're not supposed to do that, right? Don't go to your boss with a problem. Go to him with a solution. It's like, well, with us, you know, being the software implementers, please come to us with the problem and let us do what we're paid to do, which is come up with a solution. And I think that's where I think you're going to see um, that it's just less stressful to do the install, because we've got lots of experience. It's like, how many times have we seen that problem? Probably more times than the customer has. And we've also tried a lot of solutions that didn't work. let 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 us borrow those other guinea pigs so that you don't have to become one. That we have just sitting there in the corner that we don't like to talk about. Where we're like, yeah, I did that once. That was terrible. It didn't work, and here's why. So I think that's the one thing that I've learned throughout the years, and we have to turn the narrative as we're implementing.
Yeah, I agree,
Okay.
Shannon. I think that you know just let us be your trusted advisor.
Hmm.
You know, myself, Evan, you. I mean, we have unique backgrounds, right? So, I mean, I started on the technology side, programming, working on servers and that kind of stuff, and Evan had the technical background, and we've, you know, kind of gone into more business operations and, just based on our industry experience, going into warehouses and, talking to customers and seeing processes, and so being able to just, like you say, just tell us what your problem is. We've got some pretty unique skill sets, and we've been around the block a few times. So just tell us what your problem is, um, and then we can make some recommendations on, some helpful ways to fix that or remedy the solution.
Hmm.
And I think kind of expanding off that is getting the problem not just from shipping, seeing people get siloed into their different areas. Ultimately at the end of the day, sales, procurement, everyone kind of uses shipping at the end of the day. So bringing everyone to the table for these conversations and getting the problems out there is really beneficial.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, we have another question that came in. Can you talk about your ability to handle the international and ocean shipping, or different modes that aren't LTL and parcel?
I mean, that's a that's a pretty broad question. So how do we do it the right way, the way you're supposed to? Again, our system was in the Gartner Magic Quadrant TMS. It's a full, sophisticated TMS. It does handle all modes of freight, whether it's parcel, LTL, truckload, ocean, air, rail. Um, I mean, it can handle everything. So from an ocean perspective, especially on the freight audit side, I mean, we have some of the largest ocean spends that we're auditing. So we can rate ocean, we can print those documents that are needed. Same thing with international. International, you just got to capture the commodity information. We handle all the paperless invoicing, all that stuff. So that's not an issue at all. And from a freight audit perspective, we are auditing outside of the country. getting invoices that are not in English, with rates not in US dollars. I mean, we have one rating engine. That's why we're called RateLinx. You know, rate is in our name. That's what we understand. So I have a lot of sophistication and complexity. You know, our largest freight spend that goes through our system, I think, is in the billions of dollars. So as Scott was saying, some of his customers have millions of dollars, and it's like, yeah, that's great. Imagine what you have to do for billions of dollars, the level of sophistication and capability, and our system has all that.
Okay. One last question. Can you describe some of the reports that you have available or any unique dashboards or trends that help reduce that freight spend for prospects and clients?
Well, for us, the biggest one, again, if we're doing the full solution freight audit and TMS within the system, you get a lot of good capabilities with the KPIs. If you're just doing the shipping side of us, you do get our trends, so you can see what your trends are per mode. So it'll show you that, hey, you're trending up, your cost per shipment is up by X percent, and it's mainly caused by fuel, or it's caused by your cost per pound is up. And then it's going to have that all broken down into different metrics. If we're also doing the freight audit, then you're going to get our three main analytics, which is savings, lost savings, and potential savings. Savings is going to measure before and after. So if you make a rate change with a carrier, it'll measure how much it used to cost compared to how much it's costing today, so you can track your savings. Lost savings is going to be every time that you didn't ship based on your rules. So somebody not following your rules. Here's how much you lost, here's how much more it cost you, and here's the optimal carrier that you should have used based on your rules. And it's on a shipment by shipment basis, so that way you can see it immediately and address the problem. And then the third one is potential savings. So potential savings is going to show how much your rules are costing you. So if you have routing rules in there based on customers where they say, hey, I only want to use these carriers, the system's going to break that rule and show that you have other carriers available, and here's a lower cost that you could have used and how much it's costing you. That way, if you do make these decisions, which everybody makes, they make these business decisions, you can make sure that they don't get out of hand, or that your freight characteristics don't change in a way that would make that rule have to be changed. And at least you can keep track of all that stuff.
Okay, that is all for our questions. I want to thank Scott, Evan, and Shannon. I think we've given the audience a lot to think about. You've shared over 3 ways ShipLinx TMS's automations with Dynamics 365 drives value, including the flexibility to have separate processes for different shipment types, rate shopping, and the power of a seamless Dynamics 365 integration. Thank you, Evan, Scott, and Shannon, in the real world scenarios to really bring this to life. And please reach out to Evan or Adam, or send an email to info@sikich.com to schedule a ShipLinx demo. And we will be sending out a recording this week of the webinar. And until next time, here's wishing you smooth shipping. Thanks.
So.
Thank you.
Thanks.